Frank Sutton, best known for his role as Sergeant Carter in Gomer Pyle, had some surprising insights about the show's impact on his career and the entertainment industry. In this video, you'll learn about Frank Sutton's thoughts on the iconic television series Gomer Pyle, from his experiences on set to his reflections on the show's legacy. For 5 seasons, they were the undisputed kings of primetime comedy. Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C., a show about a good-natured country boy in the Marines, became a television juggernaut that never fell out of the top 10 in the ratings. At the heart of its success was the brilliantly mismatched pair of Jim Nabors as the gentle Private Gomer Pyle and Frank Sutton as the perpetually apoplectic gunnery Sergeant Vince Carter. Their on-screen chemistry was a masterclass in comedic friction, leaving millions of Americans in stitches. The image is seared into the memory of a generation. Sergeant Carter, bug-eyed and veins popping, as he unleashed a torrent of fury on the unsuspecting Pyle. But what if that on-screen friction was rooted in a deeper, off-screen reality? For decades, the true story of the Gomer Pyle set has been the subject of rumor. Whispers of professional jealousies and personal animosity have followed the show's legacy for half a century. The fan narrative often painted a picture of a bitter feud, of a serious dramatic actor in Sutton who resented the goofy, overnight success of his co-star, but was any of it true? The truth, as is often the case, is far more complex and human than any tabloid rumor. It wasn't a story of 2 men who hated each other, but rather the story of one man's internal struggle with the very role that made him a legend. By piecing together career interviews, historical records, and accounts from those who knew them best, we can finally set the record straight. This is the untold story of the real tensions on the Gomer Pyle set. To understand the man who would become Sergeant Carter, you have to go far from Camp Henderson, California, back to Clarksville, Tennessee. Frank Spencer Sutton was born there on October 23, 1923. From his earliest days, he had a flair for the dramatic. He later recalled of his first time on a high school stage, "The first time I walked out on a stage, I had a warm feeling. I knew then I wanted to be an actor." He was also a voracious reader, a studious boy who loved the local library. This quiet, bookish nature would define him for the rest of his life, creating a stark contrast with the loud persona he'd later embody. It's often said that his Beverly Hills home contained a library of nearly 3,000 books, a story that, true or not, speaks to the scholarly man behind the celebrity mask. His path to the stage was interrupted by World War II. A patriot, Sutton first tried to volunteer for the Marine Corps but was medically rejected for color blindness. Undeterred, he enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1943 and was thrust into the brutal reality of the Pacific Theater. Sutton served as a sergeant and participated in numerous assault landings during bloody campaigns in the Philippines. He was a decorated combat veteran who returned home carrying the weight of real-world authority and trauma that no acting class could ever teach. Upon his honorable discharge, Sutton used the GI Bill to attend Columbia University in New York City. He graduated cum laude with a degree in drama in 1952. He was a serious, classically trained actor, building a reputation as a reliable and versatile character actor in shows like Naked City, The Twilight Zone, and Gunsmoke, as well as the Oscar-winning film Marty. He was a man shaped by war, educated by the Ivy League, and seasoned on the New York stage. Nothing suggested his legacy would be defined by a single, bellowing word, Pyle. In 1964, producer Aaron Rubin spun off one of the Andy Griffith Show's most popular characters, Gomer Pyle, into his own series. For the comedy to work, Gomer needed a foil, an authority figure driven to madness by his incompetence. The role was gunnery Sergeant Vince Carter, and Frank Sutton was called in. From the moment he appeared on screen, television history was made. The chemistry was instant and electric. Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. premiered on September 25, 1964, and was an immediate runaway hit. In an era of escalating turmoil, the show offered a sanitized, light-hearted view of military life that never mentioned the Vietnam War. It was pure escapism, and the show ended its 5-year run as the second highest-rated series in America. Sutton approached the role with surprising depth. He didn't just see a screaming caricature, he saw a man with hidden vulnerabilities. He once explained in an interview that he felt Carter, underneath all the noise, was actually very gentle. He believed the sergeant's legendary anger came from a place of fear, a paternal, protective fear that the hopelessly innocent Pyle would get himself or someone else hurt. For Sutton, it was a complex psychological portrait masked by the demands of a sitcom. He wasn't just yelling, he was building a character whose frustration was born of a protective affection he couldn't otherwise express. The on-screen dynamic was so effective that rumors of off-screen animosity seemed not only plausible but logical. How could two men engage in that level of staged conflict without some of it spilling over? Tabloids and fan speculation painted a picture of a bitter feud. The reality, however, was far more professional. By all credible accounts, there was no deep-seated hatred between the two men. Their relationship was one of consummate professionalism and mutual respect. They were colleagues who did their jobs brilliantly and then went home to their separate lives. Co-star Ronnie Shell, who played Duke Slater, recalled that he never once saw a discouraging word between them. Reflecting. After Sutton's death, Jim Nabors spoke of him with great affection, calling him a great talent and a great human being. The grueling schedule forged a powerful working bond. As Nabors recalled, they were on set together from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 5 days a week, creating a foundation of respect, not resentment. Yet, they were not close personal friends. Nabors was a gregarious Alabaman, while Sutton was a married, intellectual family man who preferred a quiet night with a book. Their lives simply didn't intersect once the studio lights went down. So if the tension wasn't a personal feud, where did it come from? The answer lies not in their relationship with each other, but in Frank Sutton's relationship with the character he played and the fame it brought him. The true conflict was internal. The profound success of Gomer Pyle came at a steep price. The role that made Frank Sutton a star began to erase the actor he had been before. This is the cruel paradox of typecasting. Frank Sutton, the Columbia-educated thespian and respected character actor, was now, and perhaps forever, just Sergeant Carter. The struggle was deeply personal, an assault on his artistic identity. Casting directors could no longer see him as anyone else. Every offer was for a variation of the same character, a gruff authority figure who yells. The frustration must have been immense for a man who friends knew as quiet and gentle. His deep love for the theater became both a refuge and a reminder of what he was missing. On stage, in regional dinner theaters, he could be anyone, exploring the nuance that sitcoms couldn't allow. According to long-standing Hollywood lore, after Gomer Pyle ended in 1969, CBS offered Sutton his own spin-off, but he turned it down flat. While the story is unsubstantiated, it speaks to the mindset of an actor desperate to escape the very role that had made him a legend. He may have felt that to continue as Carter would be to surrender any hope of being seen as Frank Sutton, the actor. The real tension on the set wasn't between two actors. It was the internal tension of an artist trying to keep his performance fresh, night after night, for 150 episodes. It was the grind of finding the 100th way to yell at Pyle and make it feel real. And it was the quiet, nagging conflict between the serious, dramatic artist he was trained to be and the broadly comic entertainer he was paid to be. When Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C., ended its run in 1969, Jim Nabors was immediately given his own primetime variety show, The Jim Nabors Hour. In a move that speaks volumes about their true relationship, Nabors invited Frank Sutton to be a regular on the new show. He wasn't just a guest star, he was a key member of the ensemble cast. For 2 more seasons, the public saw Carter and Pyle reunited. This act of professional loyalty is perhaps the most compelling evidence against the feud rumors. In the cutthroat world of television, Nabors did the opposite of distancing himself. He brought Sutton with him, valuing their magical chemistry. Ronnie Shell also joined the cast, making the show feel like a reunion. The Jim Nabors Hour was a solid ratings performer, but it became a casualty of the CBS rural purge of 1971. In an effort to appeal to a more urban demographic, the network canceled a slate of its most popular, country-themed shows. Despite its success, the show was axed, ending the final professional chapter for one of television's most iconic duos. But for 2 years, it stood as a powerful testament to the bond between the two men. After the Jim Nabors Hour was cancelled, Frank Sutton returned to his first love, the stage. He became a stalwart of the dinner theater circuit, appearing in productions like Norman, Is That You?, and the comedy Love, finally free to tackle the diverse roles he craved. In June of 1974, he was in Shreveport, Louisiana, starring in Love at the Beverly Barn Dinner Playhouse. On the evening of June 28, just minutes before the show was to begin, Frank Sutton collapsed in his dressing room, having suffered a massive and fatal heart attack. He was only 50 years old. The audience, waiting for a comedy, was instead met with the shocking news. The news sent a shockwave through Hollywood. He was a devoted husband to his wife of nearly 30 years, Toby, and a loving father to his son, Joseph, and daughter, Amanda. His body was returned to his hometown of Clarksville, Tennessee, where he was buried. In 2017, the city honored its native son with a life-sized bronze statue, forever immortalizing the man behind the legendary Sergeant. For decades, the narrative surrounding Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C., has been dominated by whispers of a feud. But the truth is infinitely more profound. The tension that defined the show was not born of animosity between two actors. It was born within one. Frank Sutton was a man of contrasts, a fierce soldier and a gentle soul, a serious scholar and a brilliant physical comedian, a private man and a public icon. The central conflict of his professional life was the struggle to reconcile these different parts of himself under the immense pressure of fame. He wasn't brought down by a rivalry, but by the weight of his own success, the typecasting that celebrated his most famous creation while suffocating the versatile artist within. He was fiercely loyal to his country, his family, and his craft, returning to the theater where his journey began and performing until the very end. The iconic shout of "Pyle" will forever echo in the halls of television history. But the true story of Frank Sutton is found in the quiet spaces, in his unwavering professionalism, his complex inner life, and the quiet war he waged not with his co-star, but with his own success.